You often hear stories of immense wealth, tales of individuals who seemingly have it all. Yet, behind the gleaming facade of luxury and power, there sometimes lies a profound emptiness, a void that no amount of material accumulation can ever fill. This video will explore such a narrative, focusing on a prominent businessman whose life journey took an unexpected yet deeply profound turn from material obsession to spiritual awakening. For many, the pursuit of financial prosperity is a primary driving force, promising security, comfort, and status. However, a growing body of evidence, both anecdotal and academic, suggests that beyond a certain point, increased wealth does not correlate with increased happiness or well-being. This journey will highlight why true fulfillment often emerges from unexpected places, challenging conventional definitions of success. In this exploration, you will discover the nuances of a life completely dedicated to acquiring riches, the inevitable fall that followed, and the subsequent rediscovery of what truly holds lasting value. If this pursuit of true meaning resonates with you, we invite you to continue this journey. We will not promise quick fixes, but rather present a narrative rooted in a timeless principle. The spiritual outweighs the material. Drawing upon observations of countless life stories and insights from ancient wisdom traditions, we aim to shed light on the universal human quest for purpose and meaning. Our perspective is informed by the enduring power of faith and the quiet strength found in humility. This approach seeks to provide genuine value, encouraging a deeper look into the less tangible aspects of life's true treasures. Before we delve into the specifics of this businessman's dramatic turn of events, it's crucial to first understand the world he inhabited and the mindset that often characterizes those who achieve staggering material success. This foundational context will provide the necessary backdrop for appreciating the profound shifts that ultimately reshaped his entire existence and outlook. Imagine a world where your worth is primarily measured by your net assets, the size of your portfolio, and the exclusivity of your connections. This was the reality for our central figure, Mr. Alistair Finch. He embodied the quintessential image of a self-made titan, someone who had meticulously built an empire from virtually nothing, driven by an unyielding ambition and an almost fanatical devotion to growth and profit margins. Alistair's early life taught him that scarcity was to be avoided at all costs, leading him to believe that wealth was the ultimate shield against life's uncertainties. This belief system fueled his every decision, shaping his interactions and dictating his priorities. He meticulously cultivated an image of invincibility, projecting an aura of confidence that commanded respect and at times a touch of fear from his peers. Experts often discuss the hedonic treadmill, where increasing material possessions leads only to a temporary surge in happiness before returning to a baseline. For Alistair, this cycle was his daily existence. Each new acquisition, each successful deal, brought a fleeting sense of triumph, quickly replaced by the hunger for the next challenge, the next conquest. The pursuit itself became the definition of his life. Consider the analogy of a magnificent, meticulously crafted clock. Its intricate gears and polished facade function flawlessly, yet if the clock lacks a mainspring, it remains inert, without true purpose. Alistair's life, despite its external brilliance, began to resemble such a clock, outwardly perfect, yet internally missing the crucial element that provides genuine movement and meaning beyond mere mechanics. Understanding this initial state, this profound belief in the supremacy of material achievement, is vital to grasping the magnitude of the journey ahead. It prepares you to witness not just a change in circumstance, but a fundamental re-evaluation of values, revealing how deeply ingrained principles can be challenged and ultimately transformed by life's most unexpected trials. Alistair Finch's empire was a testament to his relentless drive. He operated a global real estate conglomerate, his name synonymous with audacious developments and shrewd acquisitions. His days were a whirlwind of high-stakes negotiations, private jet travel, and opulent social events, each meticulously orchestrated to further his business interests and consolidate his formidable reputation in the market. For example, you could see Alistair effortlessly closing multi-million-dollar deals on one continent while simultaneously strategizing the next megaproject across another. He believed in absolute control, meticulously scrutinizing every detail, from architectural blueprints to market forecasts. His success wasn't merely inherited, it was forged through sheer will and an almost singular focus on tangible returns. Yet despite this outwardly successful facade, Alistair often dismissed anything not immediately quantifiable or financially beneficial. Philanthropy, for instance, was seen as a tax write-off or a public relations exercise rather than an act of genuine compassion. He adapted his strategies to every economic climate, but his underlying philosophy remained constant. Profit was king, and personal gain was the ultimate metric of victory. However, this relentless pursuit came with limitations. His relationships often felt transactional, his personal life sparse. He struggled to connect deeply, seeing vulnerability as a weakness. The vast sums of money he amassed couldn't buy him genuine companionship or a sense of inner peace, issues that wealth, by its very nature, is simply not equipped to address effectively. The foundation of his life, built on such solid-seeming material achievements, appeared unshakable. Yet, even the most imposing structures can have unforeseen vulnerabilities. You might wonder what force could possibly disrupt such a meticulously constructed existence. And indeed, what event could compel a man like Alistair to question the very principles that had defined his entire adult life? The initial tremors began subtly, almost imperceptibly, masked by the sheer momentum of his sprawling enterprise. What seemed like minor market fluctuations soon developed into persistent headwinds, challenging the once unquestionable growth of Alistair's real estate ventures. He dismissed early warnings, attributing them to temporary setbacks, confident in his ability to weather any economic storm, as he had many times before. You might recall the global financial crises that have periodically swept through markets, often catching even seasoned veterans off guard. Alistair, however, believed his strategies were impermeable. He doubled down on risky investments, convinced that his intuition and past successes would once again guide him through. He saw every challenge as an opportunity for an even greater triumph, refusing to consider an alternative outcome. His board members, initially hesitant, eventually succumbed to his powerful personality, approving audacious projects that leveraged his empire to its absolute limit. These decisions, born from an unshakable confidence bordering on hubris, committed vast amounts of capital to ventures that were increasingly susceptible to external market pressures, creating a fragile equilibrium. For example, a major investment in an emerging market, once lauded as a stroke of genius, started to show signs of instability due to unforeseen political shifts. The initial cracks were small, but they quickly began to widen, threatening to undermine not just that single project, but the interconnected web of his global operations. The margin for error was shrinking rapidly, almost unnoticed. This period marked the beginning of an unsettling shift, where control began to slip from his grasp. You see him still fighting, still believing in his own infallibility, but the very ground beneath his carefully constructed world was subtly, yet definitively, starting to give way. The stage was being set for a much larger and more profound unraveling that would challenge his core identity. The escalating crisis soon intensified, moving beyond mere market fluctuations to a full-blown financial hemorrhage. What began as minor losses quickly snowballed, accelerated by the highly leveraged nature of Alistair's investments and a downturn far more severe than anyone had anticipated. Panic began to set in among his closest advisors, though Alistair still stubbornly clung to the hope of a miraculous turnaround. You might compare his situation to a ship caught in a perfect storm where every wave brings it closer to capsizing. Debts mounted rapidly, banks called in loans, and partners began to withdraw their support, fearing the inevitable collapse. The media, once full of praise, now turned its attention to the imminent downfall of a once celebrated titan, publishing daily updates on his company's spiraling decline. Alistair tried every tactic he knew: frantic negotiations, desperate restructuring attempts, even liquidating personal assets. However, the sheer scale of the downturn proved too immense. Each attempt to staunch the bleeding seemed only to accelerate it, revealing how fragile an empire built solely on financial metrics truly is when faced with fundamental shifts in the global economy. Consider the profound psychological impact of watching everything you've built over decades crumble before your eyes. The sleepless nights, the constant anxiety, the weight of responsibility for countless employees and investors. These pressures became an unbearable burden. His health began to deteriorate, reflecting the internal turmoil and stress that consumed his every waking moment. As the last vestiges of his material wealth dissolved, Alistair found himself not just financially ruined, but utterly stripped of the identity he had so carefully constructed. This complete and devastating loss forced him into a state of profound vulnerability, leaving him without the usual comforts or distractions, and preparing him, though he didn't yet know it, for an entirely different kind of discovery. With his empire shattered and his reputation in tatters, Alistair Finch truly hit rock bottom. He lost his sprawling mansions, his luxury vehicles, and even his closest associates, who quickly distanced themselves from the now tarnished name. The very people who once sought his attention now avoided his gaze, leaving him isolated and adrift in a world he no longer recognized, stripped of his former power. Imagine the stark contrast. One day, you are at the pinnacle of society, commanding respect and resources, and the next, you are facing eviction, struggling to even afford basic necessities. This precipitous fall was not merely financial, it was an existential crisis. He wrestled with feelings of profound shame, anger, and a deep, gnawing sense of failure that echoed through his once unyielding spirit. His self-worth, so long tied to his achievements and possessions, evaporated. He felt like a ghost in his own life, haunted by the memories of what he had and who he thought he was. The trappings of success that once defined him had vanished, leaving only the raw, unadorned reality of a man stripped bare, devoid of the very things he believed made him valuable to the world. During these darkest days, Alistair found himself questioning everything he had ever believed. Was success truly measured by wealth? Was his life, built on such ambition, ultimately meaningless? This period of intense suffering forced him to confront his own mortality and the transient nature of material gains, a confrontation he had diligently avoided throughout his prosperous years. This absolute desolation, however, unintentionally created a space for something entirely new to emerge. With all his previous crutches removed, he was left with nothing but himself, paving the way for a crucial internal turning point where an unexpected glimmer of hope, though faint, would begin to break through the overwhelming darkness that surrounded him. In the quiet solitude that followed his collapse, amidst the echoes of his lost grandeur, Alistair began to experience moments of profound introspection. Stripped of distractions, he found himself recalling fragments of conversations, long-forgotten advice, and even childhood lessons about values beyond monetary worth. These memories, once dismissed as irrelevant sentimentality, now resurfaced with a strange, compelling clarity. You might compare it to the stillness after a violent storm, where the debris settles and a new, clearer landscape emerges. He started to question the very foundation of his life's philosophy. Was the relentless pursuit of more truly fulfilling? Had he sacrificed genuine connection and peace for fleeting moments of material triumph? These were questions he had never dared to ask himself before. He remembered an old gardener from his youth, a man of simple means but profound contentment, who would often speak of the riches of the heart. Alistair had politely humored him, but never truly listened. Now, the gardener's words resonated with an unexpected power, suggesting an alternative path to fulfillment, one that seemed utterly foreign to his former self. During these reflective periods, Alistair began to differentiate between what he thought he wanted and what he actually needed. The desperate craving for external validation and material security slowly gave way to a nascent desire for something deeper, more authentic, and less susceptible to the whims of the market. This was a fragile but significant shift in his internal landscape. This dawning realization that perhaps there was a different kind of wealth marked the very first, tentative step on his long journey toward spiritual rediscovery. It set the stage for an encounter that would dramatically challenge his deeply ingrained pride, opening him up to perspectives he had previously disdained, forcing him to engage with the world on entirely new terms. One day, while volunteering at a local soup kitchen, a task he initially undertook out of a vague sense of obligation rather than genuine altruism, Alistair encountered a woman, frail yet radiating an inner strength he couldn't comprehend. She was irregular, helping others despite her own obvious hardships. Her kindness was unassuming, her smile genuine, untouched by the struggle of her circumstances. You might recall instances where you've met someone whose spirit seems to shine brighter despite their material poverty. This woman embodied that paradox. Alistair, still consumed by his own misery, initially saw only her destitution. Yet, as he observed her interacting with others, offering words of comfort and sharing what little she had, a profound sense of humility began to stir within him. He witnessed her offer her last warm meal to a newly arrived homeless person without a second thought. This act of selfless generosity, so utterly foreign to his past transactional worldview, struck him with an unexpected force. It was a stark contrast to his own life, where every gift, every favor, often came with an unspoken expectation of future return or benefit. This woman, whose name he would later learn was Maria, represented everything he was not. She possessed a tranquility and a generosity of spirit that his vast fortune had never afforded him. Her simple yet powerful existence subtly began to chip away at the layers of arrogance and pride that had encased Alistair's heart for decades, exposing a raw, yearning vulnerability beneath. The encounter with Maria was more than just a fleeting interaction. It was a profound lesson in true wealth, presented without judgment or lecture. It was the crucial spark that ignited a deep internal desire to understand the source of her unwavering peace, compelling Alistair to embark on a quest for something he had previously considered irrelevant: genuine spiritual understanding. The seed planted by Maria's quiet example began to sprout an internal struggle within Alistair. He found himself grappling with the uncomfortable truth that his entire life's philosophy, built on acquisition and material dominion, had failed to provide the very peace and contentment he witnessed in someone who possessed almost nothing. This stark realization was both painful and liberating. You might find yourself reflecting on moments where your own deeply held beliefs were challenged by an unexpected encounter. Alistair's struggle was intensely personal. His logical mind, trained to analyze and optimize financial markets, now wrestled with concepts that defied quantification: compassion, selflessness, and the intangible strength of faith. He questioned his past dismissal of these ideas. His nights were filled with contemplation, replaying conversations, reevaluating priorities. He began to read books on philosophy and spirituality that he would have once scorned as impractical. This wasn't an easy shift. It was a battle against decades of ingrained patterns of thought, an attempt to dismantle the mental fortresses he had meticulously built around his ego. He recognized the futility of trying to solve his current predicament with the same mindset that had led to his downfall. The old Alistair would have strategized a comeback, leveraged a new opportunity. The new Alistair, humbled and bewildered, simply sought understanding. He accepted that his past methods, while effective for accumulating wealth, were bankrupt when it came to inner peace. This period of intense internal reflection was crucial, laying the groundwork for a more open approach to seeking external guidance. Having exhausted his own intellectual resources and admitted the limitations of his materialistic worldview, he was finally ready to actively search for answers in places he previously would have deemed entirely unworthy of his attention. While volunteering, Alistair reconnected with Maria, subtly seeking her perspective, not directly about his own struggles, but about her source of strength. She spoke simply of her faith, not with evangelical fervor, but with a quiet conviction that resonated deeply. She mentioned her small community church, a place where people supported each other, sharing burdens and celebrating simple blessings. You might think of times when unexpected mentors appeared in your life, guiding you gently without imposing their views. Maria became such a figure for Alistair. Hesitantly, he decided to visit her church, an environment far removed from the lavish boardrooms and exclusive clubs he once frequented. The contrast was stark, yet there was an undeniable warmth and authenticity he found captivating. At the church, he encountered individuals from all walks of life, united by a shared sense of community and spiritual purpose. There was no pretense, no judgment, just an acceptance that surprised him. He met the pastor, a kind man who spoke of humility, service, and the boundless nature of divine love, concepts that were profoundly new and yet felt strangely familiar, as if long forgotten. The pastor, sensing Alistair's quiet struggle, offered him a simple parable about a man who built his house on sand and another who built his on rock. It was a gentle invitation to consider the foundations of his own life, without directly referencing his past. This wisdom, freely offered, began to chip away at the remnants of his intellectual arrogance, opening his heart to spiritual truths. Through these interactions, Alistair started to grasp that genuine strength and enduring peace didn't originate from external achievements or accumulated power, but from an internal connection to something far greater than himself. This new understanding laid the crucial groundwork for redefining what true value meant, transitioning his focus from superficial metrics to profound spiritual substance. Alistair began to understand that true value wasn't found in market capitalizations or luxury assets, but in intangible qualities like compassion, forgiveness, and unconditional love. He realized his pursuit of material wealth had inadvertently led him to undervalue the very things that contribute to a rich and meaningful human experience, things that money simply cannot acquire or dictate. You might compare this realization to finally seeing in vibrant color after living in a grayscale world. He saw that Maria's inner peace, the community's resilience, and the pastor's quiet wisdom were not products of their circumstances, but rather flowed from a deeper source of faith. This spiritual richness transcended economic status, offering a kind of security far more profound than any bank account. This shift in perspective meant redefining success entirely. Instead of aiming for the highest net worth, he began to consider success as cultivating a generous spirit, fostering genuine connections, and living in alignment with ethical and spiritual principles. It was a radical departure from his previous worldview, yet it brought an unexpected sense of clarity and purpose he had never felt before. He realized that his past arrogance, his relentless striving for dominance, had stemmed from an insecurity that wealth was meant to mask. Now, stripped of his fortune, he found a different kind of strength in vulnerability and interdependence. He understood that true freedom came not from having everything, but from being released from the incessant need to acquire more. This profound recalibration of his internal compass marked a critical turning point. It prepared him not only to embrace new principles, but also to take concrete, albeit challenging steps towards integrating this newfound spiritual understanding into his daily life, embarking on a path that would test his resolve and redefine his very existence in practical, tangible ways. With his new understanding slowly taking root, Alistair began to take the first tentative steps on his faith journey. He started by dedicating time each day to quiet reflection and prayer, practices that were utterly foreign to his previously hectic and self-absorbed schedule. These moments, initially awkward, gradually became essential anchors in his otherwise turbulent new life, offering solace and direction. You might feel the apprehension of trying something completely new, especially when it challenges your deepest held assumptions. Alistair embraced this discomfort. He continued volunteering at the soup kitchen, but now with a genuine desire to serve rather than just fulfill an obligation. He listened intently to the stories of others, offering empathy instead of judgment, finding common ground in shared humanity. He also made an effort to mend fractured relationships, apologizing for past arrogance and insensitivity, particularly to those he had dismissed as unimportant. These acts of humility, though difficult, brought a profound sense of release. He found that genuine connection, once elusive, became possible when he approached others with an open heart and a willingness to be vulnerable. For instance, he reached out to his estranged sister, with whom he hadn't spoken in years due to a business dispute he had instigated. The conversation was painful, but ultimately healing, laying the groundwork for reconciliation that his former self would have deemed impossible or beneath him. These small but significant actions validated his shift in priorities. These initial steps, though small in scope, represented monumental shifts in Alistair's character. They were practical manifestations of his emerging faith, demonstrating that his spiritual revelations were not merely intellectual concepts, but actionable principles. Now, these nascent beliefs would inevitably face challenges, testing their resilience in the face of real-world pressures and doubts. Alistair's newfound faith, while providing immense solace, wasn't an immediate antidote to all his problems. Instead, it presented its own unique set of trials. The lingering shame of his past failures, the uncertainty of his financial future, and the skepticism of former associates constantly tested his resolve. He often grappled with doubts, questioning if this path was truly sustainable or merely a desperate coping mechanism. You might understand that embracing a new worldview doesn't erase past wounds or present difficulties. For Alistair, the temptation to revert to old ways of thinking, to seek quick material fixes, was always present. He had to actively choose faith over fear, humility over pride, repeatedly, especially when faced with the harsh realities of his greatly diminished circumstances. There were moments of profound loneliness, where the grandiosity of his former life contrasted sharply with the simplicity of his present. He learned to distinguish between solitude and isolation, finding strength in quiet reflection rather than succumbing to despair. This distinction was crucial for maintaining his spiritual grounding amidst the internal and external pressures. For example, he once overheard a former colleague making a snide remark about his spiritual awakening being a convenient excuse for his financial ruin. Instead of reacting with his old anger, Alistair chose to respond with quiet dignity, understanding that their judgments stemmed from their own limited perspective. This demonstrated a profound shift in his emotional resilience. These ongoing tests refined his faith, solidifying it from a fragile hope into an enduring conviction. He was learning that the true strength of his spiritual foundation wasn't in the absence of challenges, but in his unwavering commitment to these new principles despite adversity. This commitment, in turn, began to connect him to a broader network of support and understanding. As Alistair continued on his path, he discovered the profound strength and comfort found within a genuine faith community. The small church Maria attended became more than just a place of worship. It transformed into a sanctuary and a source of unwavering support. Here, he was simply Alistair, a fellow seeker, not the disgraced former tycoon, shedding the heavy cloak of his past identity. You might recognize the incredible power of belonging, especially when you feel lost or isolated. In this community, Alistair found people who listened without judgment, shared their own struggles, and offered practical assistance when needed. He experienced firsthand the transformative power of collective faith, where burdens were shared and joys amplified, fostering a true sense of kinship. He participated in community outreach programs, helped organize events, and even assisted with simple maintenance tasks around the church, finding a surprising satisfaction in manual labor. These activities, once beneath him, now provided a sense of purpose and connection that his corporate boardrooms never could. He felt useful and valued, not for his wealth, but for his presence and contributions. For instance, when he shared a small personal story during a church gathering about overcoming his pride, he received not pity, but understanding and encouragement. This authentic engagement was a stark contrast to the superficial interactions of his former life, where vulnerability was seen as a weakness, and genuine connection was often sacrificed for strategic advantage. This newfound sense of belonging was instrumental in Alistair's healing process. It reinforced his conviction that true richness lies in human connection and shared spiritual purpose, preparing him for the deeper work of rebuilding his life, not on past ambitions, but on the bedrock of his transformed values, starting with his own character and relationships. With the support of his community, Alistair focused diligently on rebuilding himself from the inside out. His priorities shifted from external achievements to internal character development. He dedicated himself to cultivating virtues like patience, compassion, and gratitude, understanding that these were the true markers of a life well lived, far more enduring than any financial portfolio. You might appreciate that genuine growth often begins with an honest assessment of one's inner landscape. Alistair spent significant time in self-reflection, seeking to understand the roots of his past arrogance and materialism. This wasn't about self-recrimination, but about conscious self-improvement, identifying old patterns and actively choosing new, more virtuous responses to life's challenges. He began to practice mindfulness, becoming more present in his daily interactions, savoring simple moments he once overlooked. A shared meal, a sunrise, a genuine conversation. These became the new luxuries in his life, offering a depth of satisfaction that his opulent past had often lacked. He learned to find joy in sufficiency rather than perpetual accumulation. For example, he started mentoring younger volunteers at the soup kitchen, sharing his life experiences not as cautionary tales of failure, but as lessons in discernment and the search for true meaning. His humility and newfound wisdom made him an unexpected, yet deeply respected guide for those grappling with their own challenges, offering practical spiritual insights. This dedicated internal work was foundational. It solidified his spiritual transformation, ensuring it was not merely a reaction to loss, but a genuine, deeply rooted shift. This powerful inner change then began to radiate outwards, inevitably influencing how he interacted with the world and how he might approach any future endeavors should such opportunities arise. The profound lessons learned through his humility became invaluable guides for Alistair. He now understood that true strength wasn't about dominating others or accumulating power, but about self-mastery and recognizing his own dependence on a higher power and community. This realization fundamentally reshaped his interactions, turning him from a formidable adversary into a compassionate presence. You might consider how humbling experiences can strip away ego and reveal deeper truths about yourself. For Alistair, his downfall exposed the illusion of self-sufficiency. He learned to ask for help, to admit when he didn't know, and to genuinely listen to perspectives different from his own. These were skills he had never truly cultivated in his former life. He found unexpected joy in simple pleasures, a walk in the park, a shared laugh with new friends from the church, the quiet satisfaction of a task well done. These moments, once dismissed as insignificant, now held profound meaning. His appreciation for life's basic gifts grew exponentially, replacing the constant craving for more sophisticated, material gratification. For instance, Alistair began assisting Maria with her garden, learning about the patience and care required for growth. He found parallels between cultivating a garden and cultivating his own spirit, understanding that both required consistent effort, nurturing, and an acceptance of natural cycles, including periods of dormancy and harvest. These insights from humility were not theoretical. They were lived experiences that transformed his character day by day. This shift in perspective, born from profound loss, allowed him to see the world not as a battlefield for conquest, but as a rich tapestry of experiences where every setback held a hidden opportunity for growth and genuine gain. Alistair began to see the paradox of his loss, that by losing everything material, he gained something immeasurably more valuable. His financial ruin, once perceived as the ultimate catastrophe, became the catalyst for his spiritual awakening. The void left by his empire was slowly but surely filled with a sense of purpose, peace, and an enduring faith he never knew existed. You might reflect on how adversity, though painful, often reveals inner strengths and opens doors to new possibilities you never envisioned. For Alistair, the removal of his gilded cage forced him to look inward and upward. The very structures he had relied upon crumbled, leaving him free to build a new foundation, not of brick and mortar, but of spirit and truth. He understood that his past attachment to wealth had been a form of bondage, creating anxieties and pressures that true freedom had now replaced. The fear of loss, which once dictated his every decision, had dissipated, replaced by a quiet confidence born from knowing that his true value lay beyond any external circumstance or economic downturn. For example, he realized that the intense stress he used to feel about quarterly reports and stock prices had been replaced by a serene acceptance of what is, and a faith that sustained him regardless of external outcomes. This liberation from the tyranny of material outcomes allowed him to live with a newfound lightness and joy. This profound paradox illuminated the path forward for Alistair, compelling him to redefine success not by what you accumulate, but by who you become through your trials. It set the stage for a complete reevaluation of his life's mission, shifting his focus from personal gain to something far grander and more universally impactful. Alistair's new definition of success became radically different from his old one. It was no longer about conquering markets or accumulating vast sums of money. Instead, success now meant living with integrity, extending compassion to others, and contributing positively to the world through his actions, however small they might seem to an outsider. You might consider how your own definition of success has evolved over time. For Alistair, it became about building character, nurturing relationships, and aligning his life with spiritual principles. He discovered that true legacy wasn't about buildings bearing his name, but about the lives he touched and the positive influence he could exert, even without his former power. He found satisfaction in mentoring, in volunteering, and in simply being a supportive presence for those around him. The joy derived from helping someone, offering a word of encouragement, or sharing a simple meal far surpassed the fleeting thrill of closing a multi-million-dollar deal. This was a deeper, more sustainable form of happiness. For instance, he began to actively listen to the stories of the homeless individuals at the soup kitchen, not just serving them food, but truly connecting with them as fellow human beings. He saw their dignity, their struggles, and offered not just charity, but respect, learning invaluable lessons about resilience and humanity in the process. This radical redefinition of success propelled Alistair towards a life of service and purpose, proving that true wealth is measured by the richness of one's spirit and the depth of one's impact on others. If his journey has inspired a deeper reflection in you, share your thoughts in the comments below. His transformation subtly influenced those around him to consider their own definitions of a fulfilling life. Alistair's genuine transformation began to subtly but powerfully impact those around him. Former acquaintances, initially dismissive, started to notice a profound change in his demeanor. His newfound humility, his patient listening, and his authentic empathy drew people to him in a way his former arrogance never could. He became a source of quiet inspiration, demonstrating the power of spiritual rebirth. You might have observed how genuine change in one person can ripple outwards, affecting entire communities. Alistair's calm presence and thoughtful advice, devoid of his previous self-aggrandizement, resonated deeply. He didn't preach, he simply lived his new values. And this authentic example spoke volumes to those who witnessed his journey from despair to quiet fortitude. Many at the church and soup kitchen, who knew nothing of his opulent past, simply recognized him as a kind, wise man who had faced hardship and emerged with a profound understanding of life. They saw his unwavering commitment to service and his compassionate heart, attributes that far outweighed any former title or financial standing he once held. For example, a young man struggling with addiction at the shelter approached Alistair, drawn by his peaceful aura. Alistair shared his own story of hitting rock bottom, not in a boastful way, but with vulnerability and hope, offering a perspective that transcended the young man's immediate despair, providing a glimpse of a different future. This ripple effect underscored the fundamental truth that true influence isn't bought, but earned through character and genuine care. Alistair's story became an unspoken narrative of transformation, leading him naturally towards a desire to actively contribute and share the valuable lessons he had learned through his harrowing journey of loss and rediscovery. Driven by his profound spiritual awakening, Alistair felt a compelling urge to give back, not out of obligation or for public image, but from a genuine place of gratitude and purpose. He found innovative ways to utilize his innate organizational skills and his deep understanding of systems, applying them to the nonprofit sector where they could yield true human dividends. You might discover that your unique talents, even those developed in a different context, can be powerfully repurposed for good. Alistair, despite his lack of financial resources, leveraged his analytical mind to help streamline operations at the local community center and the soup kitchen. He optimized their resource allocation, ensuring that donations reached those most in need effectively. He didn't seek recognition for these efforts. His reward was in witnessing the positive impact of his contributions. He helped develop sustainable programs for skill building and job placement for the homeless, drawing on his past business acumen but now fueled by a selfless desire to empower others and restore their dignity, a concept he once dismissed. For instance, he helped secure a grant for a vocational training program by meticulously preparing the proposal, using the same precision he once applied to multi-million-dollar bids. The difference now was the motivation. It was to uplift lives, not to expand his own empire. This shift in focus brought him immense, lasting satisfaction. This active engagement in service solidified Alistair's transformation, turning his spiritual beliefs into tangible actions that benefited his community. It reinforced his conviction that genuine generosity, born from a humble heart, creates a ripple of positive change far beyond any individual act, setting the stage for confronting any lingering personal demons from his past. Even with his profound spiritual transformation, Alistair understood that confronting his past demons was an ongoing process. The old habits of pride, impatience, and an almost instinctive focus on material gain occasionally resurfaced, requiring conscious effort and constant vigilance to overcome. He learned that true change wasn't a singular event, but a continuous journey of self-awareness and choice. You might recognize that ingrained patterns of thought and behavior don't vanish overnight, even with the best intentions. For Alistair, resisting the allure of status or the urge to assert dominance in a conversation was a daily practice. He learned to pause, reflect, and consciously choose humility and compassion over his old knee-jerk reactions, making each choice a reinforcement of his new path. He actively sought feedback from trusted friends within his community, asking them to gently point out when he might be slipping into old habits. This willingness to be vulnerable and accountable demonstrated the depth of his commitment to growth, something his former self would have found utterly unthinkable and a clear sign of weakness. For example, during a community meeting, he found himself instinctively formulating a dominant argument, ready to control the narrative. But then he remembered Maria's quiet wisdom and chose instead to listen intently, allowing others to lead and contribute, finding more value in collaboration than in absolute command. This internal battle was a testament to his evolving self. This continuous engagement with his inner struggles proved vital in solidifying Alistair's new identity. It demonstrated that genuine faith provides not just answers, but also the strength to navigate ongoing challenges, ensuring his transformation was not merely superficial, but deeply embedded, and preparing him to embrace gratitude as a cornerstone of his new life. Central to Alistair's renewed perspective was the cultivation of deep, abiding gratitude. He learned to appreciate not just the grand blessings, but the myriad small moments of grace that punctuate daily life. This practice transformed his outlook, shifting his focus from what he had lost to the abundance of what remained, however simple or humble. You might find that actively practicing gratitude can profoundly change your perception of your own circumstances. For Alistair, this meant being thankful for a warm meal, the camaraderie of his new friends, the beauty of a sunset, or simply the ability to serve. These simple joys, once eclipsed by the pursuit of grand ambitions, now held immense value. He understood that true wealth wasn't about the quantity of possessions, but the quality of his spirit and his capacity for appreciation. This realization freed him from the endless cycle of desiring more, allowing him to find contentment in the present moment, a state of mind that had eluded him during his years of material prosperity. For instance, he started keeping a small journal, noting down 3 things he was grateful for each day, no matter how insignificant they seemed. This consistent practice retrained his mind to actively seek out positivity and blessings, even amidst lingering uncertainties about his future, reinforcing his commitment to his spiritual journey. This pervasive sense of gratitude became an unshakable foundation for Alistair's new life, demonstrating how a positive mindset born from faith can truly reshape one's reality. It allowed him to embrace peace and contentment regardless of external circumstances, preparing him for the deeper understanding of inner tranquility. Alistair eventually discovered a profound sense of inner peace, a tranquility that transcended his external circumstances. This wasn't a superficial happiness dependent on fleeting pleasures, but a deep, abiding calm that settled within him, independent of financial security, social standing, or the absence of life's inevitable challenges. It was the true fruit of his spiritual journey. You might envision this as finding an unshakable anchor in a stormy sea. For Alistair, this peace arose from his unwavering faith and his alignment with a purpose greater than himself. He learned to trust in divine providence, accepting what he could not change and finding strength to act on what he could, guided by his new values. This inner peace freed him from the relentless anxieties that had plagued his former life. The fear of failure, the pressure to impress, the constant craving for more. These dissolved, replaced by a quiet confidence and a deep sense of belonging within the larger fabric of existence. He finally felt truly free. For example, even when faced with difficult news or unexpected setbacks, Alistair found he could approach them with a sense of calm and perspective. He no longer reacted with impulsive anger or despair, but with a grounded acceptance, trusting in his spiritual principles to guide him through, transforming challenges into opportunities for growth. This profound inner peace was the ultimate validation of his transformative journey, proving that true wealth lies not in what one owns, but in the serenity of one's spirit. It cemented his commitment to a life guided by faith, showcasing how this newfound perspective would inevitably influence his path forward, should any opportunities for material recovery arise. Interestingly, Alistair's renewed spiritual focus meant that any potential material recovery was viewed not as a goal, but as a potential consequence of living a life aligned with true values. His primary motivation was no longer profit, but purpose and service. If opportunities arose, they would be evaluated through the lens of how they could contribute good, not just generate wealth. You might recognize that when your priorities shift, even the pursuit of prosperity takes on a different meaning. Alistair's commitment was to spiritual and ethical principles first. If financial success happened to follow, it would be welcomed as a means to further his capacity for positive impact, perhaps supporting his community or expanding charitable initiatives. He understood that seeking wealth for its own sake had been a trap. Now, if any business ventures came his way, they would be undertaken with a sense of stewardship, with a focus on creating shared value rather than purely personal gain. His decisions would be guided by integrity and a desire to uplift others, reflecting his transformed inner landscape. For example, a former colleague, impressed by Alistair's profound change, cautiously approached him with a small, ethical business proposition focused on sustainable community development. Alistair considered it not for its potential profit margin, but for its alignment with his values, seeing it as an opportunity to apply his skills for the greater good. This radical shift in perspective highlighted the profound depth of Alistair's transformation. It showcased that his journey wasn't about exchanging one form of gain for another, but about fundamentally redefining what constitutes true success, grounding it in enduring faith and purpose rather than fleeting material accumulation. Alistair's faith became an enduring anchor, not merely a fleeting comfort during his time of crisis, but a sustained way of life. It provided him with a stable framework for navigating daily decisions, facing uncertainties, and maintaining his inner peace regardless of external circumstances. This wasn't a static belief, but a dynamic, ever-deepening relationship with the spiritual realm. You might find that true faith offers a consistent source of strength, guidance, and resilience. For Alistair, it meant a continuous process of learning, reflection, and active engagement with his community and his spiritual practices. He understood that nurturing his faith was as essential as breathing, sustaining him through life's ongoing ebb and flow. He embraced the idea that spiritual growth is a lifelong journey, marked by continuous discovery and refinement. There was no arrival point, but rather a constant unfolding of deeper understanding and a stronger connection to his values. This perspective fostered a sense of humility and openness, allowing him to learn from every experience. For instance, He continued to participate in spiritual discussions, always eager to hear different interpretations and share his own evolving insights. His former need to be the smartest person in the room was replaced by a genuine curiosity and a profound respect for the wisdom of others, enriching his own spiritual path significantly. This sustained commitment to his faith ensured that Alistair's transformation was permanent and robust, proving that true value, once discovered, can become an unshakable foundation for an entire life. This deep-rooted faith naturally led him to consider the kind of enduring legacy he now wished to build, far removed from his past ambitions. Alistair's vision for his legacy completely shifted. He no longer aspired to leave behind towering buildings or immense financial institutions. Instead, he sought to cultivate a legacy of character, compassion, and unwavering faith, a testament to the transformative power of humility and spiritual awakening. He wanted his life to speak of true value, not just monetary worth. You might consider what kind of lasting impact you wish to leave on the world, beyond material possessions. For Alistair, this meant inspiring others to seek deeper meaning, to question societal norms that equate success solely with wealth, and to discover the profound contentment that comes from living a purpose-driven, faith-filled life. He aimed to be remembered not as the rich businessman, but as the man who found true riches in spiritual pursuits, who humbly served his community, and whose life embodied the message that faith is indeed more precious than any fortune. This was a legacy built on intangible virtues, designed to uplift and enlighten. For example, he started sharing his story more openly, not in a sensational way, but with genuine vulnerability, hoping to resonate with others who might be struggling with similar existential questions. His testimony became a living testament to the possibility of profound change, even from the depths of despair and arrogance. This redefinition of his legacy underscored the completeness of Alistair's transformation. It demonstrated that his journey was not merely a reaction to loss, but a conscious, deliberate choice to live a life of profound meaning and impact, inspiring him to challenge the very societal norms that had once defined his entire existence. Alistair understood that his spiritual growth was not a destination, but an ongoing journey. He recognized that life would continue to present challenges, and that maintaining his faith and values required continuous effort, reflection, and dedication. He accepted that spiritual evolution was a dynamic process, filled with learning, adaptation, and deepening understanding. You might appreciate that personal growth is rarely a linear path. It involves continuous striving and self-assessment. Alistair committed himself to lifelong learning, regularly engaging in spiritual study, meditation, and service. He understood that true wisdom emerged not just from past experiences, but from an openness to continuous revelation and insight. He approached each new day with a sense of renewed purpose and a humble willingness to learn. Even small setbacks no longer deterred him. Instead, he viewed them as opportunities to further refine his character and strengthen his resolve, applying the lessons of his faith to every aspect of his existence, no matter how mundane. For instance, he sought out mentors within his faith community who had walked similar paths, learning from their experiences and drawing strength from their enduring wisdom. This collaborative approach to spiritual development replaced his former competitive isolation, proving the power of shared journey. This commitment to an ongoing journey ensured that Alistair's transformation was deeply embedded and resilient, preventing stagnation and fostering continuous growth. It empowered him to subtly, yet powerfully, challenge the prevalent societal norms that prioritize material gain, becoming a quiet advocate for a different definition of success. Alistair's transformed life served as a quiet but compelling challenge to prevailing societal norms that equate success primarily with material wealth and power. He embodied a counter-narrative, demonstrating through his own journey that true fulfillment often lies in values that are intangible, spiritual, and communal, rather than individualistic and acquisitive. You might realize that challenging entrenched beliefs requires not just argument, but living proof. Alistair's existence became that proof. He didn't actively campaign against materialism, but his contentedness despite his humble means, his genuine joy in service, and his profound peace stood in stark contrast to the often frenetic pursuit of more that defined his previous world. His story resonated with those who felt an underlying dissatisfaction despite their own material comforts, or with those who struggled with the pressures of a consumer-driven society. He offered a glimpse into a different way of living, one rooted in spiritual principles rather than economic indicators, providing a powerful alternative perspective. For example, when asked about his past life, Alistair would speak of its emptiness and the illusion of control it offered. He would then pivot to the richness he found in faith, illustrating how freedom truly meant being unburdened by the constant need for external validation or the fear of material loss. This quiet subversion of traditional success metrics solidified Alistair's impact, showing that genuine transformation can inspire others to question their own values. His journey underscored the strength found in vulnerability, demonstrating that admitting mistakes and seeking help is not a weakness, but a profound act of courage. One of Alistair's most profound learnings was the strength found in vulnerability. His former life had taught him to project an image of impregnable strength, never revealing weakness, but his fall forced him to strip away this facade, to admit his despair, and to seek help from others. This act of opening up, initially terrifying, became a powerful source of healing and genuine connection. You might recall moments when you felt exposed and vulnerable, only to find unexpected support and understanding. For Alistair, reaching out to Maria, the pastor, and his new community was a courageous step. He learned that sharing his struggles didn't diminish him. Instead, it made him relatable, fostering empathy and allowing others to connect with him on a deeper, more human level. He realized that his past refusal to be vulnerable had isolated him, preventing genuine relationships from forming. It was only when he allowed himself to be seen, imperfections and all, that he could truly experience the warmth of true companionship and the strength that comes from mutual support, a feeling far more profound than any solitary triumph. For instance, recounting his darkest moments to a small group at church, he felt not shame, but a profound sense of catharsis and connection. The shared stories of hardship and redemption created a powerful bond, reinforcing his belief that true strength lies in authenticity and the courage to reveal one's true self. This embrace of vulnerability was a critical component of Alistair's transformation, proving that genuine growth often begins when we shed the masks we wear. It also enabled him to reframe adversity itself, seeing it not as a curse, but as a divinely guided opportunity for profound personal and spiritual development. Alistair's journey irrevocably altered his perception of adversity. He no longer viewed trials and losses as punishments or cruel strokes of fate, but as essential opportunities for profound growth and spiritual refinement. His financial ruin, once the source of immense despair, became the very crucible in which his true self was forged, leading to invaluable insights and an unwavering faith. You might consider how challenges in your own life have, in retrospect, served as turning points, revealing strengths you never knew you possessed. For Alistair, every setback, every moment of uncertainty was now interpreted as a chance to deepen his trust in spiritual principles, to practice patience, and to strengthen his connection to a higher purpose. He understood that without the fall, he might never have awakened to the emptiness of his former life. The loss of his material empire forced him to search for treasure in a different realm, leading him to discover an inner wealth that could never be taken away. This reframing of adversity brought a sense of peace even amidst hardship. For example, he began to advise others facing difficult circumstances, sharing his own story not as a lament, but as a testament to the transformative power of endurance and faith. He emphasized that the valleys of life are often where the most profound lessons are learned and where true character is ultimately revealed. This profound reframing of adversity was central to Alistair's enduring peace, solidifying his spiritual foundation. It allowed him to integrate his faith into every practical aspect of his daily life, demonstrating how these profound internal shifts manifested in tangible actions and interactions with the world around him. Alistair's faith wasn't confined to quiet contemplation or Sunday services. It became a practical, guiding force in his daily decisions and interactions. He applied spiritual principles to every aspect of his life, from how he spent his time and limited resources to how he engaged with others, ensuring his actions consistently reflected his deeply held values. You might wonder how a profound spiritual shift translates into everyday living. For Alistair, it meant making choices guided by integrity, compassion, and a genuine desire to serve. He practiced active listening, spoke truthfully, and sought solutions that benefited the greater good, rather than just himself, even in the smallest of exchanges. He approached tasks, however menial, with a sense of purpose and dedication, understanding that every action offered an opportunity to express his faith. Whether it was washing dishes at the soup kitchen or helping a neighbor, he brought a spirit of humility and excellence to everything he did, demonstrating his commitment. For instance, when a disagreement arose within the community garden project, Alistair, instead of imposing his view, gently facilitated a discussion, encouraging empathy and seeking common ground. His approach fostered resolution and stronger relationships, a stark contrast to his old combative business tactics. This practical application of faith transformed Alistair's everyday existence, making his spiritual journey visible and tangible to those around him. This profound influence extended naturally to his personal relationships, illustrating how his inner change created positive ripples in the lives of his family and close connections. Alistair's spiritual transformation profoundly impacted his family and personal relationships, repairing fences and fostering deeper connections. His newfound humility and empathy allowed him to bridge long-standing rifts, particularly with his estranged sister, leading to a reconciliation that brought immense healing and joy to both of them. You might consider how your own personal growth can positively influence your loved ones. For Alistair, his sister initially approached him with caution, but his sincere apologies and changed demeanor gradually won her trust. They began rebuilding their bond on a foundation of mutual respect and genuine affection rather than past grievances. He learned to be a present and loving brother, valuing shared moments and emotional support over any material offerings. Their conversations shifted from business to life, faith, and family, revealing a depth of connection that had been absent for decades, bringing a profound sense of completeness to his life. For example, during a simple family gathering, Alistair listened intently to his niece describe her struggles with anxiety, offering not advice, but genuine empathy and reassurance. This act of quiet presence, so different from his old dismissive attitude, allowed a new, stronger connection to form between them. This positive ripple effect on his personal bonds underscored the holistic nature of Alistair's transformation. It showcased that true wealth is ultimately found in the richness of our relationships, inspiring him to embrace a new purpose, driven by service and spiritual fulfillment rather than personal ambition. With his inner peace secured and his relationships mended, Alistair discovered a new and compelling purpose in life. It was a purpose driven not by the accumulation of wealth or power, but by a profound desire for service and spiritual fulfillment. His life became a testament to the idea that true meaning emerges from contributing to something larger than oneself. You might find that your true calling emerges after periods of deep introspection and transformation. For Alistair, his purpose became clear: to share the lessons of his journey, to inspire others to seek spiritual depth, and to uplift those facing similar struggles, using his experience as a beacon of hope and resilience. He dedicated himself to various charitable initiatives, applying his organizational skills and compassionate heart to empower disadvantaged communities. He became an advocate for social justice, lending his voice and experience to causes that aligned with his revitalized spiritual values, making a tangible difference in people's lives. For instance, he helped establish a mentorship program for young entrepreneurs from challenging backgrounds, teaching them not just business skills, but also the importance of ethics, humility, and faith. He shared his story openly, illustrating that true success encompasses far more than financial metrics. This discovery of a new purpose was the culmination of Alistair's journey, bringing a profound sense of direction and satisfaction to his life. It was the ultimate proof that losing everything material can lead to gaining something infinitely more precious, preparing him for a final reflection on the entire transformative journey. Alistair's journey from an arrogant tycoon to a humble servant of faith stands as a powerful testament to the transformative potential within each of us. You have witnessed how the relentless pursuit of material wealth can lead to spiritual emptiness, and how profound loss can become the unexpected pathway to discovering true value in faith and purpose. This narrative underscores that external success, while often lauded, rarely provides lasting fulfillment without an inner spiritual foundation. Alistair's story encourages you to critically examine your own priorities, challenging the prevailing notion that more possessions equate to more happiness. It's a journey from pride and fall to profound spiritual awakening. His story illustrates that even in the deepest despair, there is an opportunity for rebirth, a chance to shed old skins and embrace a new, more meaningful existence. It highlights the importance of humility, the power of community, and the unwavering strength that faith provides when all other supports have fallen away. Consider the stark contrast between Alistair's opulent, yet ultimately empty past and his current life, rich in purpose, peace, and genuine connection, despite its material simplicity. It's a vivid reminder that the human spirit's capacity for transformation is immense, even in the face of what seems like utter catastrophe. Ultimately, Alistair's journey invites us all to pause and reflect on where we place our deepest value. It prepares us to consider the profound, universal truth that resonates through his story, that the enduring riches of the spirit far outweigh any fortune the material world can offer. In conclusion, Alistair Finch's journey profoundly illustrates that while the world often measures success by visible wealth, the truest and most lasting value resides in the intangible currency of faith, humility, and genuine human connection. His loss of everything material became the very catalyst for him to gain a spiritual richness that money could never buy. You are invited to reflect on this powerful message, that true wealth isn't about what you possess, but who you become and the values you cultivate. If this narrative has resonated with you, consider exploring stories that challenge conventional wisdom and inspire a deeper look into the human spirit. Your perspective on true value might shift. Embrace the understanding that life's greatest trials can often be its greatest teachers, guiding you towards profound truths and a more meaningful existence. Results like Alistair's inner peace are not instantaneous, but blossom from consistent dedication to spiritual principles over time. This journey requires patience and perseverance. We genuinely encourage you to share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. What does true value mean to you? How have you navigated your own moments of trial and transformation? Your insights enrich this community and foster genuine dialogue around life's most important questions. Remember, the enduring message from Alistair's remarkable transformation is this: faith, kindness, and a life lived with purpose are indeed worth more than any fortune. It is this spiritual inheritance that truly enriches the soul and provides an unshakable foundation for an authentic and fulfilling life.